What does the buyer pay at closing? Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're on YouTube, click the alert notification so when I give more tips like this, you'll get notified. Two of the most talked about topics in real estate financing: purchase price and down payment. The one that's least talked about but is just as essential is closing costs. What are they? How much is it? Who pays what? All that good stuff. Closing costs aren't talked about a whole lot, but it is a very critical piece to the home buying process. What are closing costs? Closing costs are the fees that you pay at the time of the transfer of ownership. So at the settlement table, that's when closing costs are paid. And what they are is their fees and dues that correspond with the transaction, the transaction and the transfer of property. So an escrow company or an attorney or a title company, depending on where you're at, it's done a couple different ways, but they're essentially a third party that oversees the transaction, not being, I guess you could say, not really being a party to the contract itself. They're just there as a third party to be an intermediary between the two parties that are buying and selling the home. How much are closing costs? Well, typically it averages for the buyer anywhere between 2 and usually between 2 and 4%. I typically just use about 3% when I'm dealing with clientels when we're talking about how much it's going to cost to close. So make sure you have a ballpark estimate of how much you're going to have to pay in terms of closing costs. Typically what I do is I pull together a worksheet of estimated cost for the closing of the house, and I try to get that to you up front. If you can't pay, you can't close. So make sure your agent gets you an estimate of all closing costs up front once you decide on the house that you're looking to purchase, and your real estate agent has, a clearer idea of the numbers that you're looking at, price point and taxes and things like that, so that they can pull all that information together and get it to you so that you have a pretty good general idea of just about how much money you're going to be spending on closing costs. What's included in your closing costs? Well, this can vary, but here are the usual suspects of what you can anticipate having to pay for at the closing table. I even pulled together a breakdown of common closing costs. The link is right down below in the comment section if you're on YouTube. Closing cost breakdown. Here are the usual suspects. Property appraisal is typically paid for at closing. There are different inspections that may be paid for at closing as well. Typically, home inspections are paid at the time of inspection by the buyer, but sometimes, depending on the situation, for instance, a VA loan will require you to have a wood-destroying insect or termite inspection done, and that is to be paid by the seller. So what a lot of these inspection places can do is they will bill it to settlement, and on settlement that will be paid. And typically if it's something like that where it's paid by the seller, the buyer doesn't have to worry about it. But home inspections, depending on the company that you're dealing with, sometimes they can bill you to settlement as well, and you can pay for it on the back end. Processing fees, underwriter fees, lender fee, loan discount fee. There's a lot of different fees. Recording fees, settlement officer fee. Title insurance is another one that's typically paid for at closing, just to make sure that the title is free and clear when you buy it and that nobody can come back and say, actually, I own rights to that property. Document preparation fees, escrow, taxes, and insurance. Sometimes this is what, some of these things your lender will refer to as prepaids. So these are things that you're paying for the future, but you're paying it up front. It's being put into an escrow account, and for the first year, typically they will just withdraw those funds from the escrow account until that account is empty, and then they would, from that point on, they would send you the bill in the mail, and you would just have to take care of that, whether it's monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever the bill is. But then you would have to start taking care of that on your own. Prepaid interest, credit reports, transfer taxes, attorney fees, settlement fees, notary fees. So there are quite a few things that are in the under the umbrella of closing costs to be paid for. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, click on that notification bell so you get an alert every time I drop a new video. Share this with your friends and family or anybody that you know that may be looking to buy a property or just has some questions. Feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the video series that I have on how to buy your first home ever. It is full of information. It is a 4-part series. A lot of stuff in there. Make sure you check that out. I'm Mac McCord. I'm a licensed realtor in Maryland and DC. I am a husband, a father of 3, and a football coach. The purpose of this channel is to help inexperienced buyers generate wealth through the purchase of real estate. Make sure you scroll through the channel and check out all the things pertaining to buying your first house. And on that note, I'm out.